sure. I think that it could be the same for lots of different communities, but I think definitely their religious institutionalized outlook is very negative towards LGBT.
Hmm. I recently finished a book by Vicki Eckler called Queer America, which is sort of a people's history of the LGBT community in the United States. And there was one kind of thing that she kept bringing up from decade to decade, is sort of, particularly since the 70s, is sort of this, she identifies as sort of an internal tension within the LGBT community amongst people who are sort of maybe more assimilationist in their view, and those who are kind of more interested in kind of broader liberation. I'm just wondering, what you think about that sort of dynamic, and if that's at all manifested in West Michigan. Do you think that West Michigan, even within the LGBT community, is much more interested in kind of just assimilating into the culture, or trying to kind of liberate themselves from the larger culture?
I think that, let's see, I think that the LGBT communities, can't really make generalizations because
Sure.
everyone's different.
Absolutely.
But I think that for me, on the one hand, as far as assimilation, I think that I would feel that people just want to be looked at as a normal person, and not as, not that they are the same as someone who is straight, but that you're treated kind of just treated as a normal person, and that it's not based on your sexual identity. But I think that I'm finding that the LGBT community is growing a lot, and that it's being verbal about wanting that space and having it be unique and be a different culture, because I think that it is. So for me, I'd like to see it as not assimilating into the mainstream culture, and because it is something different and it should be.
Okay. Have you been involved in any, campaigns or efforts locally around LGBTQ rights at all? And then maybe on top of that, are there things that you would like to see, changes you'd like to see happen that in the future that would improve, or changes you'd just like to see in general that would be of benefit to the LGBT community that doesn't really exist right now in Grand Rapids?
I think I haven't been very involved with LGBT campaigns, things like that. A little bit at Grand Valley, but that's just going to different events. I haven't really been on any sort of committee. But as far as seeing change, I think that I would like to see kind of representatives in different areas coming out or being more vocal, because I think that from my experience, what I see is kind of younger students who are really going out there and being the visible ones. But I think that it would be really important, and probably this documentary is a good component to that, is having older people, people in different disciplines and different work areas coming out, so that it's not just seen as a young passing trend, and that it's not just important for young activists, but it's something that's important across the whole spectrum of cultures, of ages.
Certainly a critique of people who look at kind of commercial media culture in terms of representation. And that's one argument from some observers, that how LGBT people are reflected in sort of film or TV or just sort of popular culture in general tends to be disproportionately kind of very young, and even maybe economically somewhat upscale-ish and so forth, which is obviously not reflective of the reality of the whole LGBT community. Do you think that that creates problems for the LGBT community in terms of how the dominant culture sort of responds to individuals because of how their perspective is maybe somewhat influenced by kind of mass media?
Yeah, I think when people see on the TV or in the media the continuous just representation of an LGBT person as being the same, that when they see someone that's different, that doesn't fit that box that they're used to, they don't know how really how to handle it, or they may not believe them. And I think I've definitely heard a lot from religious people or people that don't agree that it's a lifestyle, quote unquote, that you're seduced into,
Right.
that someone's convinced you into. So I think that having a different representation in the media of different people, different cultures, will help to break that down, that it's just not one type of person that's influencing everybody else, but that you can see it everywhere, in every culture, every gender, every age, that it's something that is around.
Right.
Everywhere,
Yeah. Well, I mean, part of the intent of this project, apart from just sort of, getting an archive and this kind of diverse perspectives from people, is that, one hope of it is that, 20, 30, 40 years down the road, people might look back at this, students might look at this and say, oh, so that's what people thought, or that's what people did to kind of get the rights that we now currently gain. I mean, we have no idea what things are going to be like 30, 40 years down the road, but how important do you think it is for people, particularly younger folks, to have a sense of that history, of any struggle, whatever struggle it might be?
Well, history is very important. If you don't understand history, then you're not going to understand what is going on now, or how significant it is, or the direction that something's going. So I think that for younger students, having the previous generation voicing their struggles, and for them to compare that to what they're going through now, I think that it's important to integrate that history into their struggles as well.
And if just imagining that, a high school student or a classroom might be looking at these interviews decades from now, if you, just sort of thinking about what for young folks, what's important to think about it, in terms of what's helped you become the person you are. What, if you had any kind of message for them, what would you might want to share with them about what, what's important in life, or what's particularly might give them a sense of hope that, I don't have to live in fear or deny who I am. What might you say to them?
What did I say to them? I think that I would say that if you encounter someone who is disagreeing with you, or specifically targeting or being negative, or telling you that what you do or who you are isn't right, then you need to go talk to someone else. Because there are people that will, not everyone's going to agree with each other, but that there are people that are accepting and that can help find a network for you to find people who are like you, that will accept you, and not to be influenced by someone that tells you that you need to be different than who you think you are.
Okay. Well, I didn't have any other questions, but if there's something we haven't discussed that you want to share, you think it's important to talk about, the floor is yours. If you have something else you want to say, either about your own personal life or just the issues that we've been sort of talking about.
Yeah. One thing that I was thinking about before I came here was how in the Bay Area you will find queer people who are butch kind of this stereotype of the butch woman with the feminine woman, but there's not, I haven't seen as much this in between, and a lot of times when I come out, you know, sometimes I dress very feminine, and people will be surprised like that, like, oh, okay, you're a lipstick lesbian or something. But I think that it's changing a little bit, but there's still this stereotype in someone's head that if you are more feminine, that maybe you're bisexual or you're not serious or you might change in the future. So I think that that's just something I've noticed in Grand Rapids.
What do you think contributes to that, that's maybe different about the Bay Area than here, that there's not as much diversity in terms of that? It's a little bit more, maybe a little bit more rigid in terms of the sort of stereotypes about how people should be.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it's probably just the visibility or the community or the sheer population of LGBT, and maybe because it's more repressed in Grand Rapids, people might feel like they need to play that out or they need to tone it down. Whereas in the Bay Area, I just found that people are trying on different looks all the time. They don't feel like they need to fit inside a box of one certain category, and they can be with whoever it is that they want to be with. Whereas here, even when one time when I was like being set up or something, it was like, oh well, but she's more butch or she's more like, which one are you into? And I just thought, well, I don't know. I haven't seen the person. Like, I don't know. I don't, you know, I'm not gonna say I only need this or that.
Right.
It's definitely based on the person. So.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for talking with us. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really excited that you guys are doing this project.
Right. Well, if you have other folks